Okay, so this is Qigong class number 6, and it's October 26, 2020. And thank you all for being here and connecting. Last week, we began a specific practice of putting the mind in a point outside the body. Usually people in Aikido understand keeping one point. In Zazen, we understand keeping one point, putting the mind in that point and holding it there. But rarely does it occur that we can do more than just that. There's nothing particular about that point in the body that makes that the only place you can put your awareness. And in fact, there's very, very compelling reasons to explore putting the mind throughout other areas in the body to generate circulation and ki. So we started last week. I had us put the mind up above the crown chakra of the head, or the Ba Hui point, as we would say in Chinese kind of orientation, and just hold the mind there. So as you move the fingers apart, the mind stays in the point between the two. And so you're standing in your basic standing posture with your mind above your body. This is, in some sense, an out-of-body experience. I mean, you're still in your body, but your awareness is focused at this point up here. And then what we did, if you recall, is we just sort of gradually sliced down through the etheric body until we reached just maybe a half inch below the skull, not much. And then from there, just dissipate through the body generally, down through the floor and under the floor. And that was kind of like the new component. So before we take any further steps, now that you've had hopefully some time to kind of work on that process and that practice, does anybody have any points that need clarifying, or any experiences you had with your practice that you think would be worth kind of seeing what I have to say about before we move on? And lots of blank stares. So, okay, I'll take that as a no. I have a question for you. How many of you can do it? Can you actually put your mind up above your head and hold it there? So give me a thumb up if you can, a thumb neutral if kinda, and thumb down if you just like, I don't know what we're talking about.
It took some practice, that's for sure.
Oh, there's a comment. Yes, it does take practice. Yeah, neutral. I mean, honestly, if this is completely new to you and you just get introduced to the concept through a computer screen, I mean, I don't know, God love you. I mean, this is not an easy way to try to do this. But on the other hand, you can, okay? And Ankin's point is correct. You actually do have to practice it. It's not going to you're not going to fall out of bed and be able to do this. You have to actually train your awareness in this way, right? But what's interesting, and this is actually the open secret, you can train your awareness to do this, and it's valuable as all get out. Those are the two open secrets. Like who would ever think you could actually train to put your mind at a point outside your body, or that it would even be worth doing? Well, some people know this, right? And they're generally kind of hesitant to speak about it in public because A, they sound weird, they lose all their friends, and B, people won't do it anyway. And so what's the point, But once in a while you get someone who might be a successor who has an aptitude, and that person historically would kind of be pulled aside and kind of guided along quietly. This kind of stuff was not generally public information, but here we are. Why not? So yeah, it does take practice, and it takes patience to be able to do it. If we were able to be in the same room at the same time, there are certain things that I could do that would make it easier for you to feel it. Okay, I could put my mind above yours and join yours and give it a little boost, and I'd be there, and then you'd feel something a little more readily than without that advantage. But honestly, it's not necessary. It's just kind of a little party trick to help you believe it's possible, honestly. And then you're still left with what was that, and you have to feel it yourself anyhow. You know what I mean? So ultimately, no disadvantage for not having it. Any other comments besides I have to practice it? Fuzan, yeah?
Yeah, so I was trying to just feel the point, just like feeling like the raw sensation of being here, and then the raw sensation of space. Mm-hmm. And it felt kind of like not feeling it But then all of a sudden it was like like slightly, I noticed inside like my imagination kind of caught, I hate to say imagination, but it was definitely my imagination caught it. And I could literally feel like, oh, the distance between where the point is and the top of my head is a palm and my middle finger. And sure enough, like it would be accurate in a way. So I'm kind of confused on, and I did that multiple times, like, oh, it's this much. And I could, feel, but I could tell I was using my imagination slightly and I couldn't do it without it. But when I was doing it, I could go up and down, like, just like, but when I don't know, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, we're trapped in language trying to work on this stuff together, so imaginative experience is as real to your brain as any other experience your brain has. Okay. Your brain does not know the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you concretely experience. It's all just sensory input and processing in terms of the gray matter up here. Okay. So this actually doesn't discount imagination. It actually elevates it. It's very important. And from Buddhist perspective, mind is another organ of sense perception. Okay. So there are useful ways to use the imagination in this process. And part of it is, it's like when you don't know the touch of something and what it feels like, you have to kind of keep leaning in there until you can feel it. But you have to let go of trying to feel it in the way that you feel this, because it doesn't feel this way. This is very coarse comparatively. So you'll see poets will talk about knowingness or connectingness or intuition or imaginative feeling. Jeff, put your mute on unless we're talking. I can't quite hear you. Are we talking, or was that a gurgle? Okay, yes, I'm going to mute Jeff. So anyway, it could be that the healthy version of using the imagination for this is you have to have an image, okay? You have to have an image of what it is you're trying to do. And that image has got to be very meaningful and very specific. It is not fuzzy, right? If you're just trying to like kind of space out, it's very difficult to make anything useful come from that. But if you have a very meaningful and specific point, like I'm talking about this one, right? And you imagine it and you hold that in your mind's eye, and then you let go and you keep your feeling up there, it's kind of like you're setting the tone. And then what you have to do eventually is let go of your imagination and listen. The imagination sort of like pushes the boat in the right direction, and then you have to stop pushing and just let the boat go and find its point. It's something like that, If you keep aggressively imagining it, you push the experience away. Because what happens is your imaginal experience takes up all the bandwidth in your mind, and you actually can't hear or feel anything because you're busy in your imaginations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I was trying to feel what would it be like to do this without imagination. It's a weird kind of.
Like this. Just go like this. Touch your finger to your thumb. It's exactly as mundane as that. I can put my mind above that point. Like right now, it's there, and it's not a big deal, but it is that tangible. Okay, so this is one of the big things. If we have the idea that this stuff is some really, really mystical, mind-blowing, other dimensional wow, you'll never get it, because it's just as mundane as doing this. Okay, when Sensei is throwing you and he puts his mind through you, it's just another day on the mat. You know what I mean?
For him, it is.
Yeah. For you too, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But my point is, we have to honor the ordinary. See, and this is if we keep kind of grunting towards the extreme, imagine something, we'll never experience the miracle of the ordinary. So this putting your mind up here is actually quite an ordinary thing. It's really not that weird, like when you put the TV on, you put your mind in the TV screen. You do it all the time. You don't even think about it. Your mind is there, right? And it gets pulled nicely and toyed with and manipulated, appropriately. But your mind is going into the screen when that happens. Or if you're driving, you drive your car, you better be putting your mind around and looking what's going on and being aware of your surroundings. You know what I mean? So this is an innate human capacity. When even deer do it, I was just out for a walk with doe on. There's deer, they hear you coming, they stop, and their little deer mind is right on you. And then boom, they take off. See?
Mhm.
So it's like that. But you do have to have an image to go for. In terms of the distance, um, it's like, I use this because this is like a good kind of a good gauge. Okay. Your comfortable reach with your middle fingers. But, when people train, their etheric field can become quite large, quite larger than that, right? And also, if someone is ill or not well trained, it can be quite a lot less than that. Okay. So this is where an adept can get close to you and kind of feel about where your energy level is kind of radiating at, or get some sense of it and kind of tell you, like, oh, you're about here, work on it, or dude, you're way up here. People who are sensitive to this can sense it, but
What was the name of the field again, Sensei?
people call it different stuff, man. Etheric field, or your ki body, or your chi body. Your aura is, a way to say it. There's no concise term in English, but significantly, I'm talking now about the field that your body generates. And this is an important distinction, because there's the energy from the cosmos that comes down. There's the energy from the earth that radiates up. And I'm not talking about either of those energies or energetic fields right now. Right now, we're talking about the field that your body generates itself. So I like calling it my ki body. That's, my energy body. So anyway, I might be saying, let's say, that you need to be putting your mind up here this distance, but let's say that that's really a lot further up than your energetic field actually goes right now. Maybe it's a little shorter than that. Then go with it for a while. That's okay. What I can guarantee is that as you practice this, your ki body will start getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I could feel that. I don't know if I'm on mute. I could feel that when we were sorry, I wish everyone could have felt this Saturday when we were practicing Keiko. There's this moment where Ghostin and I had to like move around you. They're like, oh shit. And then you moved away. We're like, all right, now that Roshi's out of the way, this is like 5 feet out from where you're standing. And it's just interesting because Ghost and I can both feel that. We're like, now that Roshi's like, that whole area's cleared out. Let's practice over there. So it was pretty interesting, like actually feeling that. Like, it's like, how the hell do you take up that much space? In a good sense. Like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, you talk about that stuff, you lose friends, so be careful. But it's true. It's totally true, man. I mean, but again, it's not this is the thing, okay? It's not like sainthood or some magic or some really incredible, oh my God, fucking thing. It's actually just a person who's filled their body with their mind, and their mind is healthy and their energy is circulating. See, and so it's a healthy thing. That's all. It's not some otherworldly thing. Shokai, you had a gasho for a moment there. Did you have something to throw in the mix?
So I'm not sure how to ask this. So sometimes it seems easier to put your mind in this point than in the one point?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why that would be so?
Yes, it would be so. I can just speak to you personally right now, is that, your higher chakras are quite activated. You're a very deep practitioner of the Dharma, and you have some Dharma awakening. So what that means is your upper chakras are vibrating at a lot higher speed, and they're a lot more open than some other people would be. And this is just my experience, and this is what I'm saying. So it makes sense that, for you and people like you, this is going to be very elevated and maybe easier to access. Okay, now you 20 years ago, maybe not so much. All right. There are people that have great deal of spiritual insight and wisdom, let's say, of a kind, and their upper chakras and their energetic fields are very, very vibrant and very strong, but they're not connected to their body. And actually their health goes really bad, because all this upper energies is strong, but everything down here is just stagnating. And so in Zen, we put the awareness in the lower Dan Chen, and that generally takes care of that takes care of about 80% of these things. But it doesn't surprise me, And also, your body type, you're not like a big, heavy, weighty, kind of like I am. My body type is kind of like her, you know what I mean? If I just let myself go, I get very mountainous, you know what I mean? That's my body frame. I forget what it is, Kapha, Pitta, there's some other one in the Vedic terms. But, that's not your body type. Your body type is much more like up, right? You're more vertical. So, I mean, a lot of the energy in your body is up. It wouldn't seem weird to me. But I wouldn't worry about it. You know what I mean? The practice is really simple. When you sit, you put your mind down here in the one point, and then when you're going to do this sort of grounding or rootedness practice, you put it down here and then just work on it. And at different seasons and different times of life and different seasons of the year, and you get a little cold or you've had a little bit too much coffee, it all kind of moves around a little bit. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Yoshiki, please, yeah.
Not to get in a big discussion of what is mind, because that's, no one knows, but when you say you have put an image of it out there, are you actually thinking, when you say a few minutes ago, are you thinking like have an image in your mind of like a little ball of flame or whatever your mind, should you have an actual picture of your mind, a symbol that you're using, or just think, mind? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do. No, if you just have the word mind and a vague sense of it, it's not helpful. Your brain is it's better to have a meaningful and specific image. So like there's an internal power teacher named Dan Harden who was an influence on Gleason Shihan, and he studied these internal powers, and I learned from him using the image of a red dot, So there are different postures that you can do, and he taught us to imagine a red dot sitting there radiating power out. And so that is a very specific image. You see a little red dot out there. It's not there, but you imagine it to be there, and it radiates a certain kind of energy, right? So you could use a red dot. That's a traditional one, and put it up here. You could make it a golden dot or a shining. I wouldn't get too fancy though. Don't make it a big shimmering castle with crystal rooms and palaces, and just keep it real simple now. Let's just make it a little point of light and just put it up there, but it's got to be something specific.
Okay.
Okay, so unless there's other burning queries on this material, I'd like to push the ball down the court just a little bit tonight. So now, okay, we've talked about the basic standing structure, okay, and that's structural alignment, okay, skeleton bone kind of stuff, alignment. And then we've talked about the openings, the cavities, the qua in the body, and how those buff up the system and hold the system up, right? And then we started talking about this one point, and what I've said is that we're starting to work on a rootedness, groundedness, okay? And last time we put it here, and I told you to kind of sink kind of bit by bit through your key body till it got to the skull, and then just flush down and forget about it, okay? So now what I'd want to do is to say, let's say a person, not having mastered this, but having some sense that they have some sense of it, okay? You've got some kind of connection to this thing. Honestly, a large part of it is quit doubting yourself. That's probably like at least 50%. You just have to actually trust yourself and not give in to the feelings of this is stupid, or I don't get it, or oh, is that it? I'm not sure. I mean, just at least 50% of your progress is just not paying attention to those voices anymore, and just do it. It's crazy, but that's how it is. Just trust yourself. Is there a red dot above your head? Yes, there is. Okay, fine. We can move on. Oh, I don't know if there is. I can't see one. I'm not sure. All right, well, we'll wait, Eventually you'll decide, fuck it, it's there. Okay, good, we can move on now. And that's how it is. You just have to really kind of believe it like that, and then it's doing its thing, okay? Now, what I want to do is we shuffle down through the head, and we get to this point. Now I'm going to guide you through some specific points in the body. Now, if you look at any Qigong tome, and there aren't many, but there are a few. Again, this is the root of Chinese Qigong by Master Yang. You'll see a ton of images like this. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like the body, and there's all little points, and there's page after page of these different ones that have the different cycles. Yeah, here's a nice one. There you go. See, and so you've got all these, diagrams of the body. If you do a general search for Chinese acupuncture meridian, just Google that thing on YouTube. You'll see, oh my God, all these crazy points. Okay, now the good news is you don't have to memorize all this stuff. If you're going to be a healing like Chinese acupuncture person, then you damn well better memorize these things, because that's what your gig is. Okay, if you're trying to do general health and longevity Qigong, you don't really have to memorize all these things in depth, I don't think. But you do have to have some general sense of the flow of energy in the body. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a kind of a flow that I learned from a different teacher. His name is Bruce Francis. And this is a book called Opening the Energy Gates of Your Body. And he's a Western teacher, and he's got a lot on the ball, a lot to offer, I think. And he has this sort of general flow that I think makes sense. It's not the only one, but it is a one, and I think it's a good one, okay? If you're looking for other reading and resources, The Root of Chinese Qigong by Dr. Yang Ming is like your first go-to. That you really need to spend time with that. Other sources, sure. Opening the Energy Gates of Your Body by Bruce Francis. It's a good book, okay? You can also just YouTube Bruce Francis Energy Gates or Tao Space. And he's got a center out in Colorado. They do a bunch of classes and stuff. It's good. It's really good. I did a seminar with him this summer. Very, very useful. So anyway, let me guide you through the system that he has here, and we'll see what we can use it, how we can use it. So the first point is, why don't we do this? Why don't you stand up, and I'll just guide you through it, and then we can make notes, or you'll have this recorded because it's being recorded. Is it being recorded? Yeah. Okay, so it's true. Okay, so everybody, just get yourself in your standing posture. Okay. And you just go ahead and take a minute. I don't want to talk us through the whole thing, but just get yourself lined up in your standing posture. And the more you practice it, you should be able to get there pretty quick. Right? It takes a lot longer to explain it and talk through it than it does to put yourself there. And then bring your mind to that point above your skull. And then go ahead and gently sift down. You can just keep your hands down by your side and just put your mind up there, right? I just put the hands up there as kind of a helpful technique for the moment to help you see where to put your mind. But just put your mind up there, let your arms stay by your sides. And just let that point gently sift down to your head. And as you move closer and closer to your skull, if you find any blockages or stoppages or static or anything, see it, acknowledge it, open that space up, and then drop. All right. Now, when you get to the crown of the head, what I want you to do is to imagine inside that point, you're going to put your mind right in that point, and then open it. Okay, it's like opening your hand. From a fist, you open that point, right? So you put your mind in that center Ba Hui point in the crown of the head and just gently open it. Now then what I want you to do is to come around the front of your forehead to what we call the third eye, right? And let your awareness concentrate on that point. And then just gently have that point open. And again, it's like a balloon that blows up or a fist that opens. All right, you concentrate to that point and just let it open up. And then From there, move down into both of your eyeballs and put your concentration particularly on the back of your eyes. And let that, kind of where the optic nerve connects to the eye, let it just relax and open. Then bring your awareness right into the center of both ears. Just put your mind in those points, and then again, gently open them up. Just breathe naturally as you do this. You do not have to coordinate your breath with this at all. Just breathe relaxed. Then put your mind in both temples. And it goes in just a little bit, and then just open it up and relax it. And then you come to the upper point of the jaw. And let that open. And then the lower points of the jaw, invite those to open. Then bring your awareness to the place where your tongue touches the roof of your mouth. And let that open and relax. And then bring your awareness down into the throat notch and invite that to open up. Then let your awareness go to the base of the skull. And in between each of the vertebrae in your neck, and just open them up one at a time, starting from the top and working down. Then let yourself go to the top of the breastbone and just open up. Let your mind go to the top of where the shoulders are. Just open both of those. The shoulders nest. And let your awareness go down to the elbows, and right inside the center of the elbow goes in there and just opens gently. And the center of both wrists, and just invite that to open. Then go down to the center of the hand and open that. And then the base of the fingers where they come out of the hand. And joint by joint, all the fingers, just like you did the vertebrae of the neck, until you get to the very tips of the fingers. Then come back up to where your ribs connect to your sternum. And open up each rib where it connects. And the spaces in between the ribs. Behind you, where the ribs go around and connect to the spine. And the area between the shoulder blades. And then the solar plexus. Now you go down the front of the belly, the whole of the belly, starting from the front, and dissolve through all the internal organs back towards the spine. And don't worry if you can't specifically feel each organ, just think of it kind of as stages from the front of the belly all the way back into the spine. Then you've got the lower Jian Chen, the 1 point. And you've got the Ming Men point on the back of the spine. And now we're going to go down the entire spine, starting from the lower occipitals and going all the way down each vertebrae And again, the process is always the same. You put the red dot there, or you put your mind there, and just gently open the space. And it stays open as you take the red dot and move it to the next point, and just open that space. So each vertebrae, you're just going through one at a time at your own pace, as best as you can feel it, and you're just opening, 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 opening. You get all the way down to the tailbone. And bring your awareness to both hip sockets and open them, the pelvic bones, the quad, the anus, the genitals, the perineum in that order. Just gently open, open, open. Come down to the knees. And then the ankles. And then the feet. You have the bubbling well point of the feet, which is the center of the foot. And do each toes where they come away from the foot. And then finally take that red dot and put it way below the floor and significantly open up that space below the floor. And then bring your mind all the way back up to the top again, the very top. And then you just gently flush down through the whole system, just all at once. Whew. Okay. So let's eyes open. Now in practice, when you do this, you don't really need to go point to point to point to point in the order that I showed you. It's sort of like a general kind of guide. What you really want to do is you want to feel like there's a sheet of water that's coming down through you, and you notice those points as that sheet of water goes down, right? So you notice the crown, you notice the third eye, you notice the eyeballs, the temples, the ears, the point on the jaw, the lower point on the jaw, the back of the neck and the vertebrae, the throat notch, the shoulders. It's kind of like a general sliced body scan, but you're touching these specific points as they show up through the scan, right? Then you go through the arms as a thing, then you come back up the front and you dissolve the front towards the spine, and then you take the spine all the way down to the tailbone, then the hips, the pelvic floor, genitals, and all of this, and then you go to the knees, the ankles, the toes, and below, right? And what we're doing here, the significant thing is you're taking that point of mind and you're running it through that spot, and if you hit a glitch, concentrate on the glitch and open it with your mind. And then once you open it, you want to like sink it and pull the glitch down and allow the glitch or the click or whatever it is, the stuck part, to sink. And we're just relentlessly bringing the key into a sinking place. And we're sinking it, we're sinking the key, any clink or any weird spot, you kind of get there, contact it, open up around it, and then allow it to sink, and then go below it and keep going. And we carry it all the way down and into the root, into the earth, and then let go of it. Okay, so any questions on this process or observations? Please, yeah.
When we were going through that, I was noticing a warming as it went through the body.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that would be like more or less normal?
Yeah.
Like when you're staying and focusing on an area?
Yeah, again, I think I mentioned it last time, but if you put your mind in a certain area, what happens is you put your mind there and then the chi starts to gather, and then the body starts to respond. So when you're doing still practice like this and you put your mind in a point, the energy starts to circulate there, and then blood starts to go there, and all the fluids of the body start to respond. It's very much like the moon. When the moon moves, all the ocean's water gets compelled there. It's not a sudden violent thing. It's not like a big scrape. It's just like if the moon goes like this, the ocean kind of leans that way. And if you're a sailor, you can feel it. I mean, you can be out in the ocean. If you're a salt sailor and you live on the sea, you can feel when the boat's moving with the tides and stuff like that. A normal farmer in the land wouldn't necessarily be sensitive to it, but it's like that with chi. When you put your mind in a certain place, the fluids of the body go there and they start to move along, right? And so you can experience that as heat. If you search, you can see images of Tibetan lamas up in the Himalayas doing very esoteric seeming practices where they're in these freezing, frigid mountainscapes, and they'll have cold, wet rags, and they put them on, and they sit there and meditate in such a way that they dry the rags off, and they generate heat. And it's not a joke. It's kind of extreme. Fortunately, it's not required, but I mean, it is an example of how far that kind of thing can go. The main thing that you don't want to do, like the worst thing you could do would put your mind right in your heart and just hold it there and keep generating more and more heat. It's already a fire organ. You don't want to add a lot more of fire energy to it. You're good, As long as you've got this process and you're circulating, at least at this moment, we're taking everything and grounding it, then you'll do no harm to yourself, okay? If you get your mind and you hold it there and you just stay there for a really long time and you don't move around, there's a couple of places where you really do not want to do that, okay? And one of the places that's universally really good to do that is the one point here, which is part of why we use it. You put your mind here, you're never going to hurt yourself, and it's all good for the body. Here, maybe not so much. The brain, be very careful of doing anything with awareness inside your brain. Unless me or someone who's really, really adept at that is there to guide you through it, don't mess with it. And this is a point of difference between Bill Sensei and I. He has kind of a sense of, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm far more cautious about it. I don't advise people to just play around with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Let's see. I saw Jesse first, please.
So this is gonna sound really stupid. When someone says don't do something, sometimes my immediate impulse is to do it. So when you say don't put your awareness in your brain, I immediately put my awareness in my brain.
And I felt you do it.
So my question is, what is the actual because this is kind of a fun function, and it's new, and I'm sure it's new to all of us. So there might be some excitement with playing with it. What is the danger of that realistically?
The danger is it can get to be like a beehive where you shake it and there's no place for the bees to get out, and they start stinging everything, including themselves. So all you're doing is you're bringing energy. So what you do not want to do, there's certain energy centers in the brain. If you sit there and concentrate on them, they'll start vibrating. And if you don't know how to circulate it, it can actually make you sick. There is a thing called ki sickness. There is a thing called Zen sickness. All right. So circulation is never problematic. Okay. So if you put your mind in a certain place and then you circulate it around, it's never really a problem, which is probably why Bill Sensei says it's fine. But if you put your mind in some place and hold it, and you're trying to have some kind of braingasm, or you're trying to see a vision, or you're trying to catalyze the opening of the chakra to go to some other plane or something, people do these things. That can actually go really awry, and you can get a kind of illness that most people wouldn't even know how to treat, let alone recognize, let alone treat. Someone like Dr. Liu up in Ann Arbor, he would be able to treat that. I wouldn't. You know, I would know a few things to do, but if it's beyond my skill, I'd send people there. Okay. If you look at the brain, you know, if you look at cross sections of the brain, obviously the brain is kind of an amalgamation of different kinds of different places and components, right? It's pretty well mapped out. There are some practices that I'll introduce in time once we've worked our way up there that are very interesting and useful to do, but not now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're going to go hold your mind in your brain trying to get some kind of a brain spasm to see angels, right?
No, no.
That's good. Circulation is good. Eli, you had something?
Yeah. So for me, and maybe it's just because from again like riding horses for years, I'm that point at the top is something that I've been trained to like pay attention to for like posture purposes. But I'm noticing today, and I've noticed this when I do Zazen or Aikido sometimes, that I have like a really strong, almost like, I don't know, just like energy laser type thing, like feeling right there, for lack of a more eloquent phrase or word. And while you were talking earlier, I just like ran my head and I can almost like feel it. It's very weird. And if I don't, as we just talked about, if I don't let it relax and circulate, it can give me a headache.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it will.
Yeah.
But it's really not that weird. I mean, this is part of my whole thing here. You know, it's a natural human capacity that most people don't know how to recognize. That's all. And the universal thing to know is that if there's a dysfunction in the body, it's a lack of circulation. Okay, if the chi is not circulating, this is one of the great causes of dis-ease in the body. So a headache is totally, it's a stagnation of chi. Okay, so, you know, even Western medicine, you take a blood thinner like aspirin, it makes things flow better and hopefully it helps you some. I mean, you know, there's some intelligence to that too. But the chi body is simply a matter of getting things to circulate healthfully. Okay.
And also, just because I'm a nerd and I'm curious, do you know like what are some of the symptoms of chi sickness? Because now I'm curious.
It can show up different ways, you know, but one of them is pain, physical pain, like a headache. You know, that would be an example. You can get weird tremors in the body that you can't control. It can manifest all kinds of different ways. You know, one of them is you just sit there and kind of stare off into the space, and you're just kind of gone. You know, there's kind of a vacuous non-person there. It can manifest a couple of different ways that I'm aware of. But it's all stagnation. You know what I mean? We're going to get to, once we've done this grounding thing, I'm going to introduce some circulation practices that'll solve like 90% of those circulation issues for most people. It's really not that hard, you know, it's really not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't see. Kogan, have you got your hands up? I can barely see you. You're in the psychedelic place there with the red light.
Yes. Yeah, I had it set to orange for a Halloween kind of vibration. When you were just talking about key sickness and like tremors, some of that was actually showing up for me just now, and it made me think of the conversation I reached out to you on Messenger a while ago about sometimes I feel this like really sudden need to like sit down after only so many minutes have gone by.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was realizing as I was standing here now, and actually after we talked, that there's been a lot of moments where like I'm at different festival or like music events where the music is really huge and there's like a lot for various reasons. There's lots of energy moving through my body in very specific but powerful ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's actually has like gotten so loud that it's actually floored me. I've like fallen over and passed out several times because of that. And I was just wondering if there might be some sort of magnetism or some sort of like bruising or something from that might be causing that reoccurring sense of like instability.
Well, my experience with this stuff is that, you know, the chi field is constantly regenerating itself. Okay. It's not a fixed thing. All right. So like the body is constantly regenerating itself. There is karmic patterns. There are karmic energy patterns that once impressed tend to perpetuate. Okay. But you can correct and control them to a degree. Right. And so again, you know, this business about circulating, you know, first aligning and then, you know, first centering and then aligning and then grounding will allow us to start to circulate properly. Right. And these basic practices will tend to erase and undo the vast majority of chi dis-ease in the body. Right. And, you know, some people are just really sensitive, you know what I mean? Like you might just be very, very sensitive to sound overload and stuff like that. And maybe it's good that you are, you know what I mean? It's your body trying to protect you and keep you safe. You know, it's better to shut down than to keep enduring this or whatever, you know? So, you know, but if you're practicing and you start to feel faint or dizzy and it starts to keep coming on, then, you know, it might be good to check in with a Western doctor and do a checkup and stuff, you know? There's plenty of folks that didn't realize they had actual pretty serious health conditions that start slowing down, paying attention to their body. And I say, hey, go get a checkup. And like, lo and behold, they have blood pressure issues that they didn't know about before. You know, can save your life. You know what I mean? You can, if you get sensitive enough to feel your body giving you some warning signals and you can actually feel them and pay attention to them and you go and get in front of an actual doctor, good on you. You know what I mean? So that's happened too. You know, in my own case, I didn't realize I had a scoliosis in my spine until I started getting really, really still. And once I realized it, then I can start to work with it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. So I'd just like to close with a general comment. You know, most Qigong goes right into flowing practices, and there is a flowing set that I think everybody should know. It's the 8 brocade. It's very simple. Anybody can do it mostly. It's far easier than most simple yoga classes in terms of the physical postures. They're not Olympian things to pull off. But they are, you know, the next evolution in Qigong was to start putting these static postures into flowing movements. And so what most people do is they start with the flowing movements because it's more recognizable and it's easier. And most people can relate to it a lot quicker, and it doesn't take a ton of patience or intelligence to do it, frankly. You can just kind of move in a way that makes sense and you feel good. And that's fine. I mean, what I'm doing here is doing the preliminaries to that and the not antecedents, but the predecessors to that. You know, the roots of it are standing static postures, and that's what we're working on. But if you don't yet know the 8-piece brocade Qigong set, I would hold that up to you as being really, really important. For those who practice Aikido, it'll look strangely familiar. A lot of what we consider to be the warm-up in Aikido is actually a lot of flowing Qigong movements. It's not really a warm-up, but kind of it is, but it's kind of a flowing Qigong kind of movement. So for those Aikido practitioners, you can just think of the traditional Aikido warm-up as being a little Qigong flowing movement set, which it is. But there's one that's universal called the 8-piece brocade that I'm particularly fond of. There's a version of it by the healing Lama, Dr. Lu, up in Ann Arbor. He adds 2 leg stretches to the end of it. And that video is pretty useful. If you search Dr. Lu's Nourishing Life, 10 energy movements, it'll come right up. And that's really easy to do. You can just watch the video and do the moves and you're good. You know what I mean? And if you don't know what those moves are, I'd hold them up to you and encourage you to take them up and not wait. By the time this class gets up to the first movement, who knows how long it'll take us to get there. So you can go ahead and start those now if you don't already have those in your repertoire. Okay, so I'm aware that we're a little bit past our time. I want to respect everybody's commitment to the class and other stuff you might.
Dr. Lou thing you said, Dr. Lou.
What's that?
What was the Dr. Lou?
Oh,
Finish
yeah.
that
Yeah, he
phrase.
calls, yeah, Dr. Lou, Lu, he calls them the 10 energy movements. Search on YouTube, Dr. Lou, 10 energy movements. It'll come right up. It's just him in his backyard doing these things. He's a little Chinese guy. He's great. But you can just, I'm just holding them up as a flowing movement that you can do right away. You don't have to wait for it. Oh, good. Zenzon, thank you. He just put the link in the chat here. Okay, so just to review, my expectation for this week is that you get to the point where you've got your mind up above you, and then you practice going from point to point, pretty much in the order that I gave you, or close to. It doesn't have to be exactly in that order, but the idea is you start from head and you go down, you go through the head, you get the back of the neck, you do the shoulders and then the arms, then you do the front of the body, dissolve back towards the back of the body, you do the spine, into the hips, into the pelvic floor and related areas, then down into the knees, ankles, feet, and flush, okay? And then you go back up to the top and you do it again, right? And each time you do it, you might want to do it just a little bit faster. I wouldn't do this more than 3 times in a row, okay? 3 is the limit. When you do this, if you're doing it at all correctly, you're actually stimulating a lot of energetic flow in the body. And if you're not accustomed to it, believe it or not, it can be a little startling for your body to do this. So I really wouldn't recommend more than 3 times for now. What the practice might look like is it might take you, if you're adept at this, it might take you like, I don't know, say 20 minutes at the most, say 5 minutes at the least, just standing. And then internally, when you're ready to do it, just put your mind up at the top of your head and scan through the body. And as you can tell, you would have no visual cue that someone's doing this. It just looks like they're standing there, right? But the first one is your physical alignments, and then holding the mind above the body, and then flushing down 3 times. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Beautiful. And once you learn to do this, then you can do, we'll do the next thing. All right, so let's dedicate the merit. Shokai, would you dedicate the merit for us?
So let's dedicate the merits to all of those who aren't exposed to these practices, to all of those with physical impairments who maybe can't, or cognitive impairments who maybe can't do this, and to all of our Sangha and all the communities who are joined together here. May we bring the benefits of this practice to everyone. May it be so.
May it be so. Beautiful. All right, thank you so much, everybody. I'll post this on the YouTube and add it to the queue, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.